Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. So, my sister and I didn't exactly have a very close relationship growing up because of our age difference. That's why I didn't take much interest in her life and only stuck to general conversations whenever we hung out. In fact, in the last several years since I started working, I have seen her about only a couple of times a year because of living separately. And even on those occasions, we only met because it was the holidays or my parents wanted me to stay at their place while they were out of town and didn't want to leave my sister home alone. So, does it make me an a-hole that I didn't want to help out a sister I don't exactly know that well? I mean, sure, she's my blood, but I'm not her parent figure, and shouldn't it be her parents' responsibility to make sure that she doesn't get in trouble or rubs in the wrong crowd? And why should I be the one to clean up her messes when she royally messed up? What happened was that last week my sister came over to my house around 8 at night. She was covered from head to toe and was also covering her face with a cap. She was so properly disguised that not even I can recognize her through the porch CCTV, and it took her to call out my name for me to know that it was her. Quickly, I opened the door and asked her what's up with her and what is she doing at my house this late at night. I tried to check whether my parents were coming behind her, but she quickly pushed me inside and said that she needed a place to stay for a while. I was surprised, but I hid it well. I asked her what was going on. I told her to explain to me everything if she expects me to help her out, and she should better start with the way that she's dressed because her general attire is comfy clothes, not spy clothing or whatever it was she was trying to be. She told me that she needed to disguise herself in order to escape some boys from her high school. That made me cautious at once, and I asked her who these boys were. She continued telling me her story. She said that some boys were troubling her for a while now, and that she's been trying to tackle them on her own, but it's been quite difficult lately. They even started to follow her after school, and usually she was able to give them the slip by going around the long route and passing through the forest. But last week, she ran into them at the movies while going there with friends. She didn't notice them following her until she reached the neighborhood. She somehow managed to hide in the house that she ran into, but now that they know her neighborhood, it has been hard for her to avoid them. She then told me that today she saw them hanging around our house, and since she can't be sure if they know where she lives, she decided not to go home until mom and dad have returned. She went to one of her friends' houses, but she couldn't stay there for long because then her parents would involve our parents if they got to know why I'm staying at her friend's. That's why she decided to come to my place. She had no choice but to disguise herself completely so that those guys couldn't follow her anymore. She then asked me to call our parents and tell them that she'll be staying here for a while because she's very freaked out right now and wants some time to calm herself down and mentally prepare herself to tell her mom about everything that's been going on. I told her that of course she can stay here for as long as she wants and to take her time. The next day, I cooked her some breakfast and also called her school to tell them that she's staying home. The school was very, very strict about these things. Once she settled, I went into work. I didn't know how exactly to ask her for more details about the incident that led to stalking, so I decided to let her be for a while. But even though I don't have a really close relationship with her, I was still quite worried that leaving her alone for long could end up freaking her out. So I decided to leave early for the day. When I reached home, what I found completely shocked me. I came inside without making any noise just in case she was sleeping or something. As I didn't see her anywhere in the living room, I thought that she must be in her room. I went to my room to freshen up and change, but I found my sister there. She was in front of my wardrobe and was busy rummaging through it. From the looks of it, she was searching the whole room for something. Before I could ask her what she was doing, I noticed the drawer that she was very carefully going through. It was the one where I kept spare cash, just in case. I saw her take out the cash and start counting it, and that's when I coughed and asked her, what's the meaning of all this? She was shocked and promptly tried to hide the cash, but it was too late for that. I went and took the cash from her. I closed my cupboard and took her downstairs. I sat her down on the sofa and clearly asked her what was going on. I told her if she doesn't come clean right there and then, I'll have no choice but to call mom and dad and tell them everything. She started crying and begging me not to do that. She then proceeded to tell me the real reason behind her coming to my place. She said that there was no one stalking and that she made up the whole story just so I wouldn't be suspicious of her sudden appearance. She was actually here because she needed money for drugs. She said that school has been really hard for a while and her grades are falling even though she's been trying her best. She said that one of her friends told her about a place where she can get some drugs that will help her concentrate. That's why she needed some cash. Initially, she spent all of her savings, but then she started asking mom and dad. Now that she's completely out of cash, she had no choice but to come here and take from me. She said that she just needed a couple more doses until her exams are over and then she'll be done. She said she's not addicted and would pay me back once she saves up. I was so pissed at her for lying and getting in this mess in the first place that I shouted at her. I told her how disappointed I am in her and that she should have never gotten herself mixed up with these things. But now that things have come to this, I can't help her anymore. I told her she needs to go home and she can't stay with me anymore. I also gave her an ultimatum that she needs to tell the truth to mom and dad, and if she doesn't do it in the next week, I'll have to step in and do it for her. Then I sent her back home. Does not helping her out make me a shitty brother? Should I have let her stay? So I visited my parents' home yesterday. Since I didn't receive any calls from them, I wanted to know for myself if my sister had come clean to them or not. When I reached home, I found my dad just watching a game and my mom was scrolling on her phone. My sister was nowhere to be seen. Seeing me arrive unexpectedly, my parents were surprised, but they offered me some snacks and told me to stay over since it was the weekend. I asked them where my sister was, and their expressions quickly darkened. Those scary expressions were more than enough to tell me that they knew everything. They told me that my sister is under house arrest for the rest of her school year. They told me she's allowed to come out of the room only for food and to use the restroom. Other than that, she is to stay in her room and study until they decide it's time to give her some freedoms. They then told me everything that went down. So apparently my sister came home and she was in such bad shape because of withdrawal that they had to take her to hospital. I asked them why they didn't call me, and they said they didn't want me to worry. They said that my sister is detoxed now, but her addiction isn't light, and the doctors told them to keep an eye out on her. They told me they are also looking into reform centers. It wasn't necessary right now, but they don't want to miss any step and would like to be prepared. My mom was crying by this point. She was telling me how proud she was of herself because she raised such fine children. And now she finds out that she had completely failed one of us. She said that it was just a relief that my sister came to them and told them everything and that they'll be able to look out for her from now on. It was early stage and her body was only beginning to get addicted to the drug, and that's why it was much easier for her to let go this time. But if she would have gotten her hands on more of that drug, things might have gotten much worse, and she might not have been able to return back to her normal self. Either way, she won't have to miss her school year, and her grades are still salvageable. Her teachers have also been notified of her situation, and they have arranged extra tuition for her so that she can catch up. As everyone knows that she is a really bright student, they are willing to help her out and are going an extra mile for her. I was so relieved to hear that things can be somehow fixed. I was worrying before that my decision to let her go home was wrong. And maybe I should have told my parents about everything myself, but seeing how things turned out to be, I'm nothing but relieved. I told my parents I'm here if they need any help and that they can completely rely on me. Now that I know how much stress my sister actually was, I'm thinking of showing a greater interest in her life and start keeping tabs on her. I can't take away all her problems, but I can help her loosen up a bit from time to time, and I'm definitely going to do that. NTA, I think you did the right thing by letting your parents handle it and letting your sister tell them the truth. This gave her an opportunity to own up her actions and reflect on them, and also That way, your parents can see the child as asking for help instead of shunning her for hiding stuff. NaH, I think in our times where kids are driven to be nothing but perfect, it is very important to define the lines of being protective, supportive, and responsible. I don't think you're an a-hole for not being close to your sister. I think she's also not a bad person, just someone who was driven to the wrong side of the road because of our world. So, for context, I'm a 29-year-old female and I have 3 children with my wife, 28, female, R, 6, female, J, 4, female, and A, 3, male. My sister, 31, female, was getting married and asked that my eldest daughter be the flower girl. My sister and I aren't close since I live in France and my family is in the US, but I agreed. When we flew to my hometown a week before the wedding, I was surprised to learn that there were multiple flower girls. 3 others, ranging from 3 to 7 years old, the daughters of friends. I didn't have a problem with that, but I did worry a bit that Jay would feel left out. My wife asked my sister about it casually over dinner at my parents' 4 days before the wedding to see if there was any chance that Jay could be included. I didn't want her to have to change any major plans, and I was okay with her saying no. But we were more so curious about the reason for the exclusion. She told us, however, that the reason was because she and her fiance wanted a certain look for all their flower girls. For context, my wife is blonde with blue eyes, and she carried R and A, both of whom look a lot like her. My family and I have brown hair and brown eyes. I carried J, and she looks like me. My sister dyes her hair blonde, however, and her husband is very fair. I quickly realized that the other flower girls were all blonde, so I asked my sister if that was the reason for Jay's exclusion. She told me it was, and that she and her fiance thought it would be cute if all the flower girls were adorable blue-eyed blondes, like his family and their future kids. My wife kind of freaked out at this and called my sister some pretty nasty things. Psychotic Nazi might have been thrown around. And I backed her up because I was angry too. We left, and the next morning I texted my sister that R would not be a flower girl. I didn't think this would be a huge deal since they had multiple. She was furious though, and she called me crying about how stressful wedding planning is and how my wife and I were being very inconsiderate. She told me that my wife needed to apologize for her outburst at dinner. I told her that she'd done nothing to show that what my wife said was wrong. On the day of the wedding, my wife and I decided to just leave all the kids with a friend of mine since we didn't want them involved in what was going on. My wife and I were polite throughout the wedding and mingled with other guests, but didn't talk to my sister. Now, some of my family members have reached out and told me that my wife and I were really selfish and horrible to my sister, and that we made a big deal over nothing on my sister's big day. My aunt likened the situation to picking out bridesmaids' dresses, and that wanting her flower girls to all look alike was totally normal. It still feels wrong to me, and my wife is still livid. I do realize, though, that maybe we spoke a little too harshly to my sister in the heat of the moment, and I'm wondering if I should have apologized for getting so angry at the very least. I don't know. AITA? NTA, your sister wanted an Aryan wedding party. Gross. Aside to your aunt, people aren't accessories. You get matching flower girls, bridesmaids, whatevs, by coordinating their outfits, not their ethnicities. NTA, and does your brown-haired sister really believe that by dyeing her own hair blonde, she'll end up with fair-haired children? My parents divorced when I was 5 because my dad was cheating on my mom with Emma. The divorce was pretty damned awful for me. I remember my dad being pissed that my mom was exposing his affair to the courts and was attempting to get primary custody with him, getting every other weekend. My mom was pretty wrecked by what dad did. I remember a lot of sadness and crying as well as some anger. My dad and Emma moved in together during the divorce, and I still remember how he introduced Emma to me and how messed up it was. He told me he loved Emma and he wanted me to love Emma too and let her be my mom, and how she would be such a good mom too. Emma was all about asking me to be her daughter and stuff. Then, at their house, I would hear them say my mom was trying to hurt them and was being mean. My mom sat me down during the whole thing and told me that she and my dad did not like each other anymore, and she and Emma also had problems. But she told me that I could feel however I wanted to, that she didn't want me to dislike anyone for her sake. She was just telling me so I was aware of why certain things wouldn't be happening and going forward, and why she might be more quiet around them. But that it was okay for me to like and love them and be happy with them, and to never be afraid to show that. It took a few months for me to want to try, but it quickly ended because Emma started introducing herself as my mom. This was before the divorce was even finalized. I did spend an equal amount of time with both parents for a few years, but when I was 12, I chose to live with my mom. A couple of years before that, Emma got pregnant and she lost the baby, and she almost died during the miscarriage. It made Emma infertile, and I remember my dad telling me about it and how she would need me more than ever. I think Emma held on to some hope that growing up would make me feel different about her, and she would get to experience some of the more fun mom stuff with me someday. But I just tolerate her and my dad, and it's really hard some days. They never stopped hating my mom and saying it around me. Now I'm engaged and I already have the venue decided. Invitations picked out, dress purchased, bridesmaids dress bought, and I even did flowers and went shopping with my mom for her outfit. I also asked my mom to walk me down the aisle and do a mom-daughter dance with me. I have not included Emma in anything, and when I told my dad I had asked my mom to the dance and walk with me, Emma burst into tears and ran off, according to him. They say I should have carved out a space for her in all this, that after her miscarriage and never being able to carry her own child, I should be trying to include her more, and that the lack of special place for her makes me an a-hole. AITA? NTA, your father and Emma both contributed to ruin your mother's marriage. They had an affair. They said bad things about her, and they really expected you to have a good relationship with a woman that mistreats your mom? You are not Emma's replacement child. It's their fault that you don't have a relationship with her. And let's be honest, if she was able to have a child, she wouldn't be bothering you. You are allowed not have a relationship with her. You don't have any responsibility to deal with her feelings and pretend that the last didn't happen.